Every time you try to do anything but pay attention to her, she comes and plucks herself over here. Explain yourself. Ah, okay, that makes sense.
Hello fellow readers and readeresses. I have always been impressed by people who can make a TBR for the whole month and stick to it. Being a hopeless mood reader myself, the thought of such a scarcity of choice leaves me shuddering with claustrophobia. As an example, recently I undertook to make a review of 10 of the most recent Illumicrate books for a video, which you can see here. Come to find out, I actually had to read the damn things in order to make the review. Can you believe that? So for 2 months, I had to sneak those 10 books into my reading, which isn't the same as a strict TBR, but came close enough to make me question whether I should give up like every other day. On the other hand, I love watching TBRs and TBR games. Here are some of my favorite ones, and you can also find them in the video description below. And since I can't participate in any of those, I decided I'm gonna go the entirely opposite route and make an anti-TBR video. That'll teach them. I got the questions for the anti-TBR from Bookishly Rebecca's website. I will also link it down in the description if you're interested. Oh, and one more thing before we begin. Accept all of my answers as somewhat tentative. I am very easily baited into any sort of reading challenge, so I am not above reading any of the books/authors in this list, given the right manipulation. Let's go. A popular book everyone loves that you have no interest in reading. Oh boy, I will try to stick to the genre I usually read, because otherwise it will be almost impossible to narrow it down. I think I will go with Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This is an adult fantasy about revenge as far as I understand. The way I've heard people describe the main character leaves me very doubtful that I will like this book. That's because I have somewhat of an aversion to overly emotional and irrational characters. And it's not to say that I could never like a book that features them, but the probability of me disliking it is much higher. So given how many other great books there are, I think I'll just skip this one. A classic book or author you don't have any interest in reading. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I guess I don't have to give a summary for this one. Have you ever read the synopsis of a book and thought to yourself, how did anyone ever feel like picking this up? Well, that is exactly how I felt reading the synopsis of this book. I have zero interest in lavish parties, and the maniacal love of some dude for some chick just isn't something that I care for. On the other hand, the time period might be interesting, and the book is fairly short, so who knows, maybe I'll give it a try one day to see if I was wrong. And let me tell you, there's nothing better than thinking you will hate a book and then proving yourself wrong. A problematic author whose books you have no interest in reading. Now, I don't necessarily have an idea what qualifies an author as problematic. I suppose that will mean different things to different people. And as I don't keep up with news, be it social or otherwise, I mean, I'm not on Twitter or TikTok, I barely check Instagram, hell, I barely respond to the people I actually like. It makes it a little bit more difficult to figure out which author is problematic and which isn't. So what I figured I will do is Google problematic authors and probably pick one of the lot. Okay, after a quick search, I picked Rainbow Rowell. Now, I don't know much about this author. I have never read her books. I don't know her writing style, and I'm not implying that her books are bad. They just spark no interest in me. The genre that she writes in and the tropes that she portrays are pretty much the opposite of what I like, so there. An author you have read a couple of books from and have decided their books aren't for you. I guess I'm a bit hasty in my judgment because I can't think of an author whose book I didn't like and then decided to pick a second one. Though I'm not above giving an author a second chance if I find the premise of their new book to be interesting, with one exception. Hanya Yanagihara. I made the mistake of reading A Little Life a while ago, and let me tell you, this is simply a torture porn. I have no idea why anyone would write or read this, and I don't recommend it to anyone. It disturbed me to no end, and I will never touch another book by this author with a stick. A genre you have no interest in, or a genre you tried to get into and couldn't. Contemporary literary fiction. I have such a hard time with it, and every time I pick it up, I drive myself straight into a reading slump. And I'm not implying in any way that these books aren't valuable or that they are always bad. But this genre just doesn't jive with me. And so instead of consistently rating books who don't deserve it low, I decided to just stay away from the genre altogether. A book you have bought but will never read. This can be a book you have on hold, returned to the library and read. Oh man. Where do I begin? I am suffering from what is marginally known as a terminal book buying addiction, which I'm sure I'm in no way unique in. So I will, on occasion, buy a book or 12 that I have no intention in reading. But you know, just in case or whatever. So picking up just one book sounds rather unfair somehow. So here, I'll do a top 3. We have Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is a young adult fantasy romance, and it's about two sisters, one of whom is trying to avoid an arranged marriage or something, and then a mysterious magical caraval, which is something of a carnival if I understand correctly, arrives in their town. There's a phrase in the synopsis that reads, quote, "She becomes enmeshed in a game of love, heartbreak, and magic," which just makes me go, what? And I think I only bought it because I saw it in the store and I've heard of it before. Honestly, I have no true explanation. It will most likely remain unread. And then we have Ulysses by James Joyce. This is a well-known classic which follows a single day in the life of a handful of people, which is all good and well, except this book is gigantic. I mean, how long is this day? Anyway, I don't envision picking up this book anytime soon, if ever. And last but not least, we have Life of Pi by Jan Martel. This is a book about a boy who survives after a shipwreck on a boat for 227 days with a Bengal tiger named Richard Parker. I have seen the movie based on this book and I quite liked it. In fact, it was rather satisfying. So try as I may, I just can't envision myself taking the time to read this book anytime soon. A series you have no interest in reading, or a series you started and have DNF'd? Well, let's see. I can't think of a series that I outright have no interest in reading off the top of my head, but when it comes to series I have DNF'd, Vampire Academy by Richelle Mead. I actually DNF'd book 1 at like 50% because I simply couldn't stand the main character. In all fairness, the book is written for teenage girls and my old butt read it when I was already in my 30s. And mind you, I am not implying in any way that teenage girls are less intelligent or that I'm somehow more intellectual. It's just that people tend to have different interests and views on life when they're in their teenage years versus when they have hit mid-30s, and the thought of reading about any sort of dating angst and high school trepidations seems like a terribly unnecessary chore, which I'm quite sad that I wasn't able to read these books, and many more for that matter, back when I would still have been able to fully appreciate them. Oh well. A new release you have no interest in reading. Let's see. Like with many other things, I am not wholly aware of the new releases that are coming out, so I will have to consult the power of the internet. Though now that I think about it, every time Goodreads suggests new releases to me, either via a banner in-app or with a newsletter, every time I have the thought of, oh my god, who cares? But for the sake of fairness, I will try to stick to the genres I usually gravitate to, otherwise we'll be here all day. So let's see what came out recently. I guess I'll go with What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, which came out on July 12th of this year. I just can't read anything that has a cover that I don't like. Very rational, I know. But this is horrifying, which given that the book is a horror, I guess it's rather understandable. But as this is just too messed up, I guess I'll avoid this new release. And frankly, many more. And that's about it. Short and sweet. I hope nobody was overly offended by my irrelevant opinions. And if you feel so inclined, let me know what your answers would be. We can debate and commiserate. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. It means a lot. It means even more if you drop a like. For glory! Have a lovely day, and I wish you all a perpetual mood read. Once upon a time, there was a person who wasn't subscribed to my channel. And then they did. And they lived happily ever after. This could be you.